politicians and political parties that have their head in the sand right now that are the ones that are going to suffer the most, because this is the way the world is moving.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Chatter, a podcast from The Gist. On today's show we're talking to Callum Curry from SUS. SUS is a market research and polling company that Callum's been working on for 2 years. The idea is basically to give people a better way of engaging in issues going on in their area and get politicians to listen when it's not just election time. We had a really great discussion about SUS, about the entrepreneur scene in Northern Ireland, about tech startups, and about universal basic income and the future of work. Today's episode is sponsored by Unison. They're currently fighting a battle against the Northern Ireland Trusts over the proposed £70 million in cuts, and if you want to sign the petition to help them with that campaign, you can find it in the description below. So let's get on with the interview. Yeah, so Callum, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to get to chat to you and get you to explain exactly what SUS has become and what it is, not just for myself, but I think there'd be a lot of people interested in hearing, from its creator exactly what it is, and for people who don't know what it is to sort of understand the idea itself and how it's gonna revolutionize Northern Ireland as a country.
Yeah, I like that terminology.
So yeah, do you want to just sort of give us a brief overview of what SUS is?
Sure. So SUS is a civic engagement platform. We basically have the aim of changing the world by empowering local people to have a voice in their community on both civic and political affairs. Okay, so when it launches in the next couple of weeks or months, say someone sees the app and they download it, like what's the first thing they're going to see or be able to do with it? Well, they're going to see content that's completely tailored towards who they are. They're not going to see polls for the sake of polls. You're going to see campaigns by the local organisations in your area that are actually helping to shape your area. When you then engage with those campaigns, you're giving those organisations the ammunition that they need to take the local decision makers to get decisions made more efficiently. Okay, so it's like a local polling app. Yeah. So why should people use your app for their, to give their opinion? What makes that any different to tweeting it or, making an angry Facebook post about it or standing on the corner of the street with a soapbox? Sure. The problem that we've seen when working with local organisations is they have tried the whole Facebook, Twitter polling strategy before. The problem is that you can see what the general consensus of opinion is. However, the information on the back end of that is lost to Facebook or Twitter or the platforms that you're using, which is a problem for local organizations because there's an opportunity there for them to actually capture that data, harness it, and then use it as a tool to address local politicians to take action. It's probably the best answer to that question. Okay, so then having used social media polls and stuff, so you find that it's too almost specialized to whoever is conducting the poll. Well, that's the issue. Is the fact that if you're running a poll through your Facebook page, you're only going to be able to reach the audience that are already engaged in what you're doing, and this is something that you and me have spoken about before. So, any local organisation, university, or business we've talked to, an issue that they're having is how do they measure impact outside their existing community. We wanted to bring the entire community experience online so that people may be on our platform to engage in one particular area of interest, but because they're on our platform, they'll actually see your campaigns and then start engaging with you. Does that make sense? Yeah. No, it's definitely a really interesting idea. I like obviously Northern Ireland is an interesting society to get a poll of in general, and it tends to be that polling is difficult to do. Sure. Especially
in an era where we have so many different forms of polling. So you could go with a telephone poll, you could go with social media, as we kind of talked about. You could go with stopping people on the street. You know, there's a whole sort of plethora of ways in which people can go about it, and by bringing it all together in a place where people can give their voice on really locally specific issues, like, you know, where they're planting the trees at the end of the street, the whole way to the collapse of Stormont. It gives like a really broad...
It's given people the access to this information. The information is out there, the organizations are out there, but it's accessing what's actually going on. And as this generation is aware, we're used to getting our information at the click of a button. But for some reason, and I mean, this is why we started out in this journey, I couldn't personally understand why I could look up a video of I could look up funny videos of cats, but I couldn't access information that it was literally shaping the world I lived in. And that was important to me then, to go on a quest to build something. And I knew that prior to 2 years ago, I had interest in politics, but I'd never studied politics. I knew that if I could build something where I would find a platform engaging, informative, and bring this information to me in a way that I could understand, that anybody could understand it and anyone could use it. So that's kind of where that whole idea even started from. Yeah,
why don't we go back a bit, because the original conception of the idea was a little bit different to what you've kind of it's evolved and morphed into. Do you want to talk a little bit about what the initial conception was and what your initial idea was?
Absolutely, yeah. As a young guy, I couldn't understand why my opinion became so important. Well, no, I could understand why, but I couldn't understand why there wasn't a forum for me to make my voice heard in an effective way at times of the year that weren't around election times. It felt, and this could be a personal thing for me, but that my own opinion was only really valued by politicians around election time.
Well, that's like 3 times a year.
Well, for us, yeah. But I couldn't understand that, because there was a lot of decisions being made, even in the area I come from, Lisburn, where I couldn't access this information, and I wanted to build something where people could actually give their opinion, and it was important that they could give their opinion in real time to issues that they actually cared about. Now, in 2016, it was all around political engagement, so. It was giving local people the opportunity to voice their opinion on political issues that were being discussed by their politicians at Stormont in advance. Our platform is integrated through social media, so you can compare how the public were voting on each issue in comparison to how your political representative was actually voting. And then trying to address some of the issues around why people aren't engaged. So tackling transparency, allowing you to actually see who's voting in what way on each bill as it came through Stormont in real time. So yeah, that was basically 2016 in a nutshell, and it's probably what most people listening to this podcast will know SUST for. Right up until, obviously, then we had the collapse of Stormont at the end of last year, which threw up unique challenges to us as well.
Yeah, I really felt for you, because I knew how close you were to sort of launching things, and I was excited to get to see it in action essentially. When it came to, especially, I was really looking forward to what happened once the Assembly got itself back together post the March election. And then obviously that hasn't quite happened yet, but what really intrigued me was that the idea that the opinions are out there. It's not something that isn't sort of in the community. It's not that everyone's sitting there with no opinion.
Yeah.
Because if you've ever been to a cafe anywhere, you'll hear someone complaining about some decision that's being made.
Yeah.
And as you said, that the information's all out there on the internet, on social media, with people complaining, but it's very unrefined. And a lot of voices can get lost in the ether.
Sure.
And sort of drowned out in the screaming noise that is social media. Exactly, your opinion won't be heard, and it's very much something like I've experienced. Like that I see the decisions that are being made, I understand who's making the decisions, I understand why they're making the decisions, but don't feel like you can have an impact upon the decisions, even though that these people are your local representatives.
Which is exactly how I felt too.
Yeah, you're definitely not alone there, and I really enjoy the way that it hopefully will give communities more of a voice, because I think it's very easy for politicians to dismiss a small activists group as, oh, these are just some fringe lunatics concerned about this issue.
Sure.
Or, say 5 people care enough about the state of the bus lanes or whatever to go to their, MLA or their or the Department for Infrastructure or whatever and go, why have you done this? This was stupid.
Exactly.
Or just as the bus lanes, for an example, and they're controversial.
Yeah.
Especially the new ones in the city centre. But it's very easy for people to dismiss a small group, whereas if you're giving them more community-wide polling on it, it's much more difficult for them to ignore it in reality.
Absolutely.
And it gives them maybe not a shock to the system, but it gives them a much better idea of how the average person feels about decisions that are being made,
which they should be happy about.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. These are the people that they represent. You should want to know how your constituents feel. Now, obviously, based on basing our business model around political stability in Northern Ireland wouldn't have been the strongest business model ever. Now
we had what was it? Nearly 10 years of uninterrupted government.
Yeah.
Shockingly.
Yeah.
Seems like a distant memory now.
Well, I mean, for us, it was an opportunity. It was an opportunity for us to take a step back and say, well, what else can we do with this platform? And I mean, it gave us the chance to say, okay, well, people may not just want to engage politically, but there is an awful lot of other issues out there that we can actually address by, instead of going sort of from the top down, going to actually the grassroots level and saying, okay, well, what's actually happening in our communities? What's the topics that you are interested in, and going from the bottom up as opposed to the other way around, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it totally does. It's a really interesting idea, because obviously in the UK as a wider sort of whole, a lot is made of polling, and in all elections or anywhere, a lot is made of polling, but it's very much no matter how detailed your polling is, it's a very expensive way of trying to gauge public opinion. Yeah. And it's a very, very dependent on the people you're managing to poll. And obviously there are ways you can weight polls, and you can attempt to kind of make up for those deficiencies. Sure. But unless you're asking everyone, or at least a substantial portion of people, you're not going to get a real concrete idea of the opinions. So I'm really, really excited for you generally, just to see where you can go with things, because I think it's, as you kind of touched on, it's a platform or an idea that hasn't really been explored.
No, I mean, it's like you said. I mean, there are existing polling companies out there. It's for us, it's about access, and it's about giving people an option to make their voices heard on many different issues, and express their opinions in an effective manner. Technology allows us to harness these massive platforms like Facebook and Twitter, and the idea being that if you can provide local organizations with the information and the statistics that they need to take the local decision makers, on the flip side, alongside that, it's leveraging social pressure on these networks to get these problems addressed more efficiently. Because it's not going to my Facebook timeline complaining about something, because that's not going to get the problem addressed. It's giving the information to the organizations that can actually use those statistics to actually take action. And then it's very, very difficult for local decision makers to hide behind not knowing the facts, where you have the statistics there, and you can then, because it's integrated through social media, what happens if 10, 20, 50,000 people start sharing these statistics? It's very difficult then for the person who represents your constituency to say, well, we don't know that this is actually the case. We don't know who feels this way and how much support you have, because it's there. So
yeah, I mean, I really hope that it can sort of help bring us to a more representative form of democracy in a very broad sense.
Sure.
Because, well, at the moment there's obviously polling done on, you know, how many people in Northern Ireland want gay marriage.
Sure.
That does kind of get ignored, but there are, as you kind of say, it's not thousands of people sharing those statistics. It's, if you want to go and look, they're there.
Yeah.
But you have to kind of go through some polls and try and find the right data, and this kind of centralizes it all.
Yeah.
And in a way that genuinely could make like a huge impact next time it comes to an election, or even just on the day-to-day running of our councils, of, you know.
Well, that's that. I mean, it's on the flip side. I mean, I'm saying empowering the public is one part of what we're doing, but it's also providing local councils, local political parties with the ability to gauge public opinion in real time, so they can actually see how their constituents feel at any given time on any issue. So it's a huge resource tool for them as well. You know, our ambition is to revolutionize how our democracy works by harnessing technology.
It's actually really interesting in that, well, when this goes out, we'll have just released a conversation that I had with Brett Weinstein, who's an evolutionary biologist.
Yeah.
And we were actually talking about the way that we've got to a point in which a lot of democracies in the UK, in the US, and in Northern Ireland as well, he used the phrase that we need revolution without revolution.
Yeah.
And he felt that there was no way that we could do that through physical revolution. Sure. Without it turning to violence and you know, just chaos, essentially. Yeah. And that he felt that the way that it could be possible to move a society forwards would be to arrive at a better form of governance and of running, you know, societies and countries by harnessing technology. Yeah. That is not just there for the use that it's being pushed for. Yeah. That it's being adopted because of its utility to people in a wider sense, rather than just in terms of governance. Yeah. And we sort of talked about blockchain as a way of governing and running a lot of government systems. And we talked about way in the future of using AI. And it honestly didn't even dawn on me that your platform could genuinely be part of that technology that can help revolutionize the way that a country is run. Sure. Right the way down to a local level, because of its utility to not just the people who are running the countries, but to anyone who's trying to get a gauge on what the opinion is on the ground. Yeah. And that's just an exciting prospect.
Well, I mean, I was listening to a little bit of your podcast with the guys from Progressive NI, and they were talking about the idea of a citizens' assembly, which that's always been an interesting idea to me. Now, my idea of maybe not going and polling 100 people, but instead having a way that you can actually get the public involved at every stage, instead of at different times, actually opening these decisions up to the public at any given time, given the technology that we have, because we didn't have this opportunity 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you didn't have the opportunity to sit here and talk to people like me, or talk to some of the other guests that you've had, and get information out there to the wider public. And that's what it's about. It's the transfer of information and communication. It's effective communication. I think if the theme should be, you can't it's revolution through communication. And you see how important communication is at every level of life. If you don't have good communication in a relationship, it breaks down. If you don't have good communication within local government, it breaks down, and that's what we're seeing right now. So.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way of looking at it, in that the breakdown of communication between politicians and the people they're meant to represent is something you could draw across, societies all around the world. Like, I think there was a poll that was done in America, and it could have been a couple of years ago now. It was probably one of the most shocking graphs that I'd seen in terms of how effective a democracy is. And it was the graph was essentially the likelihood of a policy being implemented against the opinion of the public on said policy.
Yeah.
And there was no correlation, none whatsoever.
Yeah. Whether
100% of the public wanted something or 0% of the public wanted something had no impact upon whether that policy was implemented. And in America, it was kind of designed to show, and then they weighted it for the influence of money and big donations, and all of a sudden there's a lot more correlation between.
Sure.
Yeah,
I can understand that. Yeah,
but I think it played to a wider point that people maybe don't feel that, much like you felt, that their voice is heard by the people who are making the decisions, and this is a way that technology can now bridge that gap, because we, as a first generation of people who are getting to grips with this technology, as you said, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to sit here and record something and then put it out for anyone in the world to hear, unless I was a radio host.
Sure. And
now, any monkey with a microphone can do it. So it's going to be a really intriguing time, I think, to watch how society is going to evolve as people begin to understand how the technology that is being developed can be used to not just, for the novelty of it, but to actually improve the world as a whole, to be really ambitious about it. Why not aim for the stars and all that?
Absolutely. And
I think it's an exciting time.
Well, I think, if you... as far as how technology is progressing, I'm vice curator for Global Shapers here in Belfast, and a theme that we discuss is the fourth industrial revolution, and how it's going to affect existing industry here. For you to think that our political system is exempt from the effect that technology is going to have is ridiculous, and it's those politicians and political parties that have their head in the sand right now that are the ones that are going to suffer the most, because this is the way the world is moving. And we're just excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun time. Sit back and grab the popcorn. But yeah, so to sort of move on there, you mentioned your work as part of what was it? The
Global Shapers.
The Global Shapers. Belfast, well, what do they do?
The Global Shapers, we're an initiative of the World Economic Forum. We have hubs from 400 countries across the world of young people that are actively trying to push innovation and improve their local communities. And if there's any local entrepreneurs, innovators listening to this podcast, I would suggest that you get in touch with me or Global Shapers Belfast to learn more about the fourth industrial revolution and how you can make an impact on society for the better, because there are some fantastic minds here in Belfast, and I think amid a lot of this political turmoil. What's missing from media is just how much good work is going on in the city and across Northern Ireland, whether that be through local community groups or whether that be through young innovators that are actually looking beyond what's going on in local politics and trying to make a significant impact on their communities and wider society.
Yeah, it's Northern Ireland is a much more innovative and happening place than maybe a lot of people realize. You just for a point there, if anyone is out listening and feels like they want to get in touch, we'll put the link in the description for the contact information there. But your sort of point that the media maybe doesn't cover quite how much innovation is going on in Belfast is something that I think I'm not even sure they know how to cover it, because I was watching my mum had BBC on last time I was up at home in the morning, and they were talking about the impact of your phone and on technology, and I was just looking at it going like, but this conversation's 5 years old. Like, obviously people are more than aware of they were talking about the shock that phones are built to be addictive. No shit. Essentially, that people are going to make their products to be as enticing as possible.
Absolutely.
So I get the impression that they maybe don't quite know how to cover a lot of the innovation, and because it's happening so rapidly that they're not quite sure how to keep up with what's going on. And I think it's difficult for more traditional media outlets to kind of get a grasp on what's going on the ground in the tech scene.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would share the exact opinion that they're just not able to keep up with it. I think that bad news sells quicker than good news. And I think that even I was at a Youth Action conference last week, Islands of Innovation, which brought together some of the best young minds from across the UK and Ireland. And we got no local media coverage at all for that event. And where was it? In the centre of Belfast. Just around the corner from Minst. And I mean, it wasn't because they weren't contacted to let them know that this is happening. And that's only one example, and then that's within the last week. But there is a ton of other examples out there of young people doing incredible work, and not just young people, but local people doing incredible work. And it comes down to how do you reach out to the wider community and let them know the work that you're actually doing. If you're not getting local media coverage, then you need to look to technology to get your ideas out there.
Mm-hmm. So you've had a lot of experience, obviously, working with the sort of startup and tech and innovation scene in Belfast. What do you make of it as a whole, as a place for young innovators?
This is an incredible time to be living in Belfast and Northern Ireland. It's an incredible time to be living, full stop. I mean, I know we had touched on obviously how addictive your phone is, but your phone is also this incredible tool that gives you access to information that you could never access before. It gives you a platform to make your voice heard and to reach out to communicate with people in a second. We didn't have those opportunities before. The local business tech startup scene in Belfast is booming. I mean, the work that is happening down at Catalyst in the Northern Ireland Science Park is incredible. I think a lot of young people here are looking, I mean, maybe due to their access to things like social media, can see what's actually happening in other parts of the world, and we're actually positioned in an incredible space because we aren't. I mean, there are many ways that we've been held back and aren't as advanced as some places on the mainland. But that is not a complete disadvantage to us, because we can look at technology, ideas, business that's being implemented in other parts of the world and bring those ideas here. And there are innovators right now working in Belfast, and this is something that I'm extremely passionate about as well, because I intend to be one of the most successful young people from this country, full stop. And the opportunity for me to then go out and actually speak on how incredible young people can be from here, and like actually change the narrative around young people from this country, like that is something that I'm extremely excited about, full stop. Whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're not an entrepreneur, I'm just extremely excited to be able to go out and talk about that kind of stuff. So
yeah, Belfast, there's definitely a lot more happening than there even would have been a few years ago.
Sure.
The amount of different grants and programs for anyone who thinks they have an idea. It's exciting because typically I think part of it, honestly, I think is because of the tuition fees here. Because for myself, when I was applying, oh my goodness, nearly 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm feeling really old now.
Same sort of time frame as I probably would.
But yeah, when I was applying for university, there was the choice. It was just as the £9,000 fees were coming in. So the choice for me was stay in Northern Ireland and pay a third for an equivalent quality education. There was like Queen's is a Russell Group university. It's really there's some fantastic staff members. There's some really, really brilliant lecturers, like some really great facilities. And for me, it was a no-brainer to stay here because, just simply because I'm coming out with a third of the debt that I would have had if I'd gone to England.
But look how many young people that we're actually losing to the mainland and other places for those students that are actually leaving us to go to university abroad.
But I guess my point is I feel that has been sort of a galvanizing factor in keeping people here.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine I'm the only person who had that thought. I'm like, well, I could pay $9,000 for the same level of education as I would get here.
Yeah.
Why would I go and do that when this is still the cheapest place to live for people in the UK?
Yeah.
And I just feel like we're kind of getting to a point where we're almost past that brain drain that was happening for 40 years because of the Troubles. Anyone who had ambition would, you go to London or you go to Manchester, you go across the water because the opportunities are there. And now I'm sitting here looking across and going, well, I could, thanks to technology as well, it's like I could go and live in England somewhere and run our site and our podcast from somewhere across there, but it feels like it's almost makes more sense now for people to stay in Belfast. Because of the amount of innovation going on. But very much to your point there about there not being a whole lot of coverage of it. Like why do you think that is?
Of the amount of innovation that actually goes on here. I think the people that could tell the story about some of the best stories that are going on in Belfast just don't have access to the right platforms. Unfortunately, I mean, it goes back to the question about traditional media and why a lot of the good stuff isn't being reported here. And I'm not entirely sure. I'm not entirely sure as of yet why. I can't get my head around why some of this stuff isn't being reported. But I think it's a very good point about you were speaking about young people staying here for the low tuition fees, and I think that's a fantastic incentive for them to stay here. But I think that we need to do better in our conversation than just low tuition fees, because for the amount of people that we're still losing to the mainland, and I think it's a conversation that we need to have about self-awareness of young people as well, and a lot of young people believing that if they go somewhere else, it's the old idea that the grass is greener somewhere else. And I know from experience that many of my friends that have went away have ended up coming back here anyway after realizing that actually life isn't that different anywhere else. In fact, we don't have it bad in a lot of ways here, and in many other ways we actually have it great. Which is more of the message that we need to start sort of pushing out towards young people about the opportunities that we have here, and trying to keep some of the best minds that we have here to build something, to dig in and build something here now, and which is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, you're definitely Because I think a lot of the complaints that people would maybe have, like, oh, there's more going on in the city, and the government isn't as backwards, and well.
The thing is, that's the problem, is that no matter where you live, wherever you come from, these problems exist everywhere else too, to a degree. And at some point, you're going to have to, as a young person, you're just going to have to dig in and try and build something for yourself. So I mean, that again, I think that's a good message that we need to get out to young people.
Yeah, well, hopefully SUST can try and help shape a slightly better world for graduates and for people who want to. Because Belfast is a vibrant and really fantastic place if you're a student, especially. Yeah. And as a young person, as a yuppie, or I don't know what you want to call it, plus just graduates who are trying to get themselves on the job ladder and into the job market, and or just start their own companies, or just push on in the world. I think that Belfast is becoming more of a place that is more alive to that sort of attitude.
Yeah.
And I think we're moving in the right direction, and hopefully, there's more people like yourself who are going to be pushing to, rather than, like you said, going where the grass is greener, to try and.
Well, I think that's also resting on the shoulders of our education system as well, because a theme that actually came up at that youth action event that I spoke of last week was entrepreneurship in young people, and not only entrepreneurship, but self-awareness in young people, and how our education system isn't necessarily set up. Or hasn't actually kept up with how our society is moving, and doesn't create enough space for young people to make their own decisions, find out who they are, and then make life choices based on that. It's sort of the production line of going from primary school to high school to university, with very little time in between to say, okay, well, who am I and what value can I give? And I think the narrative around the career that you want is always based on how much you can earn, when it should be based on how much value that you can give. And that's something that I believe in 100%. I know that if I create enough value for people, that I will make money. And that's what young people need to realize. It's what need can I meet, and stop looking for a certain salary or a certain lifestyle. The narrative around that needs to change, but it does come back to our education system and how that's set up, and allowing people to make decisions for themselves, and also teaching them not entrepreneurship in relation to business, but entrepreneurship in relation to life in general, and how young people are actually taught how to cope with loss. This was a strong theme that we were talking about, and how we are graded, how that affects then whether we get back into school, whether we drop out, how we then deal with those sort of losses at an early age, and the effect that has on us. Because losing in general, or failing, now when I say failing, it's never failure. And I never see failure as failure. I see it as an opportunity to do something different. And that's the conversation that we need to have with young people, is that there are no failures, there are only lessons to be learned. And that can help them. That can help them in every aspect of their life, not just if they're out looking for jobs or going to university. That's going to help them in life in general.
That's a really good point. Because something you said there about sort of the production line from school to, sixth form to then university and going beyond that is something that sort of like checkbox. Okay, got my GCSEs. Okay, got my A levels. Okay, got my university. Got my Duke of Edinburgh. Now I am ready for a job. Yeah, and it's something that I don't think is quite right for today's economy.
No, it's not.
Because it might have been fine before, when people would have gone into a job and worked for a company for 40 years and then retired.
Absolutely, yeah.
And someone said to me recently, actually, about how it's a combination of a couple of factors. First, that the idea of staying with a company for a career is no longer really very viable.
No.
It's not viable, but it's something that a lot of people don't do. They'll go and work at a job. I think the average stay for a job is now 3 to 5 years, and then they'll move on to another industry.
Yeah.
So, and I feel it's because people are maybe not sure what they're wanting to do with their life, or maybe they're just, happy to move around, find different things, like try new ideas, try and find things that they settle into well, or maybe people just like a change of scene, whatever it is that's moving that needle, or whether it's sort of you could be really cynical and say it's because workers aren't valued and people get pissed at a job after 5 years and then want to move on to somewhere better.
Yeah.
But there's that. There's the move towards a more automated economy. There's the fear of people having.
That's a real fear, because that's a reality.
Yeah, no, it 100% is, and that the traditional 9-to-5 office job in 10 years could just be a complete thing of the past.
Which is scary, because and again, this is why it's important that we have these conversations with young people, to let them know that a career path that they're thinking of right now won't necessarily be around by the time that they leave university or school. Some industries right now are going to be seriously affected within the next 5 to 10 years by technology. So you may think that you're going to be an accountant when you leave school and you're going to go through your university thing, only to find that in 5 years' time, a lot of the services that you thought that you were going to be able to provide have been taken over by artificial intelligence, by automation. This is the way the world's going. I actually had a discussion with someone on Facebook yesterday who was telling me, this is the kind of conversations that we used to have in the 1980s. It's all science fiction. And I was like, if you have children right now, this is the kind of conversation that you need to be having with them. You need to be teaching them what's coming and how we need to learn how to. This comes back to learn how to be able to adapt and to failure. This thing about if you quit a job after 5 years, that's seen as failure. It's not. It's you adapting. It's you moving into a different area and being comfortable to do that. Whereas, like you said before, you could go into a career in previous years. You could get a career and work for 40 years. This is a completely different world, and in 5 years' time, it's going to be a completely different world again. So it's trying to prepare young people and try to prepare our education system to catch up, to understand that the skills that you're being taught in school aren't necessarily going to be applicable by the time you leave school.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see exactly where the economy goes. Like, I have a theory that the best way to deal with it is to move towards everyone working part-time, because there's not going to be the hours for everyone unless we just start inventing. Again, I saw a thing the other day about the rise of bullshit jobs, but we're going to have to invent a whole lot of bullshit jobs for everyone to be working full-time in 20 years. Yeah. But it's...
Can I get your opinion on something?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on a universal salary or universal
basic income?
Basic income, yeah.
I think it's a fantastic idea, but I think it has to be, and a friend of mine is even more concerned about it, but I think it has to be the perfect level of. It has to provide the bare minimum. So it has to have, housing and food. Yeah. Those are the two things that people need. Yeah. More than anything. If you in America, you have to consider healthcare because that's not a thing, or in other countries where there's insurance and whatnot. But here, thankfully, we have the NHS for now. But yeah, it has to cover housing and food for me. But this kind of actually goes to a point I was going to make there, is that someone said to me about how they think the economy is going to move towards a much more entrepreneurial spirit. Sure. In that people aren't going to be employed by companies anymore, that we're going to see more and more and more and more and more people self-employed and running their own little, even if it's their own little craft shop or their own little site on Etsy where they sell a few things for like a passive income. Sure. And I think that ultimately that's where we could end up with a universal basic income, in that if people have housing and food supplied, that entrepreneurial spirit can thrive. Because it gives people that safety net to go, okay, I have these things. What do I want to do with my day? Yeah. What do I want to do am I going to make something and put it on the internet to be sold? Am I going to write a book? Am I going to learn a skill and see what I can do with that? Am I going to start a podcast?
It creates that space that we were talking about.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of the idea. I'm not sure how you finance it yet, in terms of there's a lot of different ways. You could do it with a carbon tax, or you could do it with an automation tax, or you could do it with a complete scrapping and reorganization of the welfare state. There's a lot of ways you could go about it, but yeah, I'm a big fan.
I think it's interesting because obviously being able to create that space for an entrepreneur to not worry about those things seems like an incredible thought to me personally. Obviously, because this is the road that I've been on for the last couple of years, where things haven't been as simple as these necessities are just covered. And again, I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs are probably dealing with right now, is the challenges, because obviously, I mean, again, going back on how we deal with loss and being able to adapt, the way things are right now without a universal basic income, it's challenging being an entrepreneur. It's challenging being a person, but it's challenging being an entrepreneur, to go out and to commit to something completely. Without those things, without the basic things being taken care of, and it's risky.
It's the idea of having that safety net is really galvanizing. But what would you say to people who would, maybe be listening to this or looking at universal basic income and be like, okay, but people just have things provided for them. They're just gonna sit in their house all day and not do anything. Like, what would you say to that idea that there are people who don't want to work, or there are people who just aren't that bothered and are happy for everything to be provided for them?
I think you're always going to have those people. You're always going to have the people that aren't prepared to work. Those are the kind of people that aren't prepared to work right now are already probably receiving some sort of government help anyway. This gives help to the people that are in work, that have to work long hours just to cover basic human needs, which is most of the population of the world are in that situation, that they don't have that freedom. I mean, this is why some of the best ideas come from college dropouts or guys that are at uni, because you have that space, like having that opportunity where you have those basic things taken care of, where you can actually sit and say, because it comes back to a level of self-awareness that you need to have as well. It gives you that space to say, okay, well, who am I and what do I actually enjoy? Because most people have to save what they actually enjoy for after when they come home from their existing job. And there's at the minute there's very little space for you to say, okay, well, this is who I am, and this job or this opportunity, this product, this service can be an extension of who I am.
Yeah, to be someone actually, I'd be interested to get your thoughts on something. Someone suggested to me the other day that if at a threshold where you've been, say, on the dole or on, not working for a certain length of time, that you should be offered or sent to, didn't really come to a conclusion on exactly, but sent to someone for like psychiatric assessment. Go, okay, why are you happy to sit at home all day, and sort of try and like eke out is it a fear of failure? Is it as you sort of touched on? Is it just like a lack of desire? Is it not knowing in themselves what they want to do, and therefore it's easier to do nothing?
That is a great idea. That's the first time I've heard that idea, but that is a great idea. I mean, obviously, people are using the benefit system. The benefit system is there to help people that need it. Obviously, then there are a percentage that are taking advantage of that system, and it would be very interesting to see what the psychology of those people were. Whether they think, if I'm earning this certain amount, I'll be fine. I mean, the problem is that depending on what benefits you're on, some people are actually earning just as much out of benefits that they would on a part-time wage. So then they will have to look at an option of, okay, well, full-time employment. But it's very interesting, because everything actually stems from self-awareness. But I mean, that problem that you're talking about of sending these people to see a psychiatrist, that should already be tackled while you're in education. Why, something that is a complete mystery to me is why we're not taught how to deal with what's in our heads.
Okay.
That is so mysterious to me, the fact that we're not taught
when you say that, what exactly do you mean?
Well, so when I say, obviously we've talked about self-awareness, but talking about mental health, teaching young people how to actually use or direct their thoughts in a positive manner, how to deal with what's going on inside your head. And there's a huge problem where young people aren't taught with what's going on, like how to deal with some of the thoughts that's going on inside their head. And they're up until the last couple of years, and in some, there is still some stigma around mental health as well. But the reality is that every single person goes through different stages of mental health their entire life, and we're never taught. Unless you go, and I mean, obviously you have a school counsellor. So if you want to, you can go and see the school counsellor. But that's designated for the people that need help. Where we, like, every single person should be taught these skills of, okay, this is the way that your brain can work, but it's okay because everybody else is feeling the same way. Because then from that moment on, from that school level, you're not going to have to get these people to come in for some sort of evaluation, because they're already going to know how to deal with some of those thoughts that they're maybe struggling with. It's interesting because obviously that's sort of it's interesting to think about. That could be a result of what's actually going on in that person's psychology, is why they're actually on benefits. It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the results would be of it, but I'd definitely be intrigued to see, because to me, I've never quite understood the arguments like, well, what are people going to do all day? It's like, you give me food and a house, I'm gonna find something to amuse myself, and eventually,
sure,
even if that's for a while, just sitting and watching TV, or I'd get bored.
Sure.
I'd get so bored.
Yeah.
I'd start making something, or start drawing something, or start I think that there's potentially like a lack of time, in maybe even more so in today's society, for people to ruminate upon like what they want to do and what they're thinking and who they are, partially maybe because of technology and because of the kind of, instead of sitting, like if you're waiting for a bus for 5 minutes, you'd be 100 years ago, you'd have been, okay, that's for example, so 30 years ago, unless you were really like cool and had a Walkman, you'd have maybe been sat and you would have had time just to be with your thoughts and think. And that might not seem like much, but to me, I think this habit that people have is like, oh, well, just pick my phone up, scroll through Facebook, and you don't get bored.
Sure.
And that like constant environment of amusement essentially stops people having the time to sit and like process their own thoughts. And then if they are left to their own thoughts and devices, they maybe don't quite, like they're sitting there, they're maybe feeling a bit rose. Oh, I'm bored, I'm feeling rubbish, blah, blah, blah. And that leaves them feeling, oh, why am I? They don't get to the source of, it's okay to be bored and be alone with your thoughts. I think is something that is almost lost on people these days. And I'm not going to try and claim to be some messiah who knows and is never on their phone, or never whips their phone out when they're a bit bored. But I think it's something that, like, I'm trying to notice if I'm just like mindlessly scrolling, I'll be like try and snap myself out and be like, no, that's not good for me.
Sure. Well, there is. I mean, even if you're talking about sort of self-awareness, mental health, and technology, I mean that poses issues that are completely unique to our time as well. Even if you look in sort of relation to how we judge ourselves in comparison to other people, going back 30 years time, you were only really going to compare yourself to your immediate friend group. You were gonna fast forward to today, you post a photo online and you're thinking hundreds of people could look at this photo. How do I look in this photo? How many likes am I getting in this photo? And I think I've read a couple of studies on, the relation between platforms like Instagram and people's mental health, which is interesting. And again, that comes down to that sort of unique problem to our time is another thing that isn't really being taught to kids either, which is interesting. I don't know. I think the answer to all of this is to give yourself space. If possible, you should meditate. That's what I think young people should be doing.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I find it really, really like focuses my mind if I can get up even for 5 minutes in the morning and just.
That's the best time to do it.
Yeah,
that's the best time to
sit
do it.
And, after you've had a shower, so you're nice and relaxed, and you sit and just sort of close your eyes. A little bit of whatever. Just some of the names of the. If you look on YouTube, you just like meditation music. Some of the names of the tracks are absolutely outstanding. It's like transcend to the fourth dimension and open the third eye. And like I get the kind of metaphorical idea behind it, but it just makes me laugh. It's like get in touch with the angels, and I'm like, what on earth? This is just a bit of music for you to listen to.
Yeah, there's a lot of like binaural beats and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, the binaural beats, there's science behind them, but I just find the properties that people say giving the properties that people say listening to them have is really amusing.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's the best time. Obviously, we're living in such an immersive movie, and the moment that you wake up in the morning, it's engagement time, and your head is just going do 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 do. The best time is to meditate in the morning, because this is just my own personal experience, so people will probably be listening to this being like, this is completely alien to me. But dealing with my own thoughts, dealing with the challenges of being an entrepreneur, dealing with life in general, I think it's incredibly important that you look after what's going on inside your head. So I would every morning I put a certain amount of time aside where I can focus on myself completely, both mentally and then physically as well. Because I like to use my time in the mornings constructively to focus completely on me, because then it makes me the best possible me for the rest of the day. And I can't affect others in the positive way I want to affect others unless I've got myself straight, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Start with yourself. Be the change you want to see in the world.
Be the change.
To quote Gandhi, controversial man that he is. But before we wrap up here, is there anything you want to say about Sust to kind of go back to the original point of our conversation? Sure. Or is there like a mailing list or whatever people can sign up to, or to get sort of info when it's going live? We'll be pushing Sust to the store within the next few weeks. The best way for you to sort of keep track of what's going on is just follow us on Facebook. Okay.
You'll see some marketing material and stuff going out. It'll probably tell you the story of what we're doing in a better way than I've just done. But this is an opportunity for you to make your voice heard like never before. And we're providing that platform. If you're not happy with what's going on in your local community, or if you just want to support a local organization, if you want to make your voice heard in relation to what's going on in your university, get on Sust, and then let us know what you think, because we're going to develop as a platform over the next sort of few months as well, depending on who's using the platform, how you want to use it. I'm just looking forward to the next couple of months.
I'm not sure if we mentioned, but the more you use the platform, the more you get rewards and discounts and little incentives.
The idea being is that we want to bring the complete community experience online. So above and beyond you just being able to shape what's going on in your local community, we wanted to bring the local business community online as well and let you interact with them. So an added incentive of you actually engaging on our platform and making your voice heard is that for the more you engage, you then qualify for rewards in the form of discounts from local restaurants, shops and businesses.
Yeah.
So,
okay, well, thanks very much for having a chat with us.
thanks very much, Josh.
Thanks very much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, you can like and subscribe on iTunes. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all forms of social media. You can share the episode with your friends, maybe even leave us a review or a comment. Let us know what you think. Till next time, thanks very much.